In a shocking display of in-your-face wake-up America tyranny, gun-wielding government agents across New Jersey shot into action in September to grab privately owned firearms to the tune of one per day by mid-month, which leaves us a great deal to consider. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. Let's get right into the action here. This important story comes to us according to Joe Hernandez of WHYY in a piece published on September 13th. He said, "Judges have approved requests to use the state's new red flag law more than once a day on average since it took effect on September 1st. Under the legislation, law enforcement agencies can confiscate the guns of a person who poses a threat to themselves or others after getting judicial approval." Of course, the state determines what the threat is. Now, let's talk about this a little more deeply. That could make anyone concerned about rights wonder why these strong-arm agents of the state of New Jersey don't hang their heads in shame over what they're doing. Well, based on what New Jersey Attorney General Gerber Graywall has said, perhaps they lack the capacity to feel shame. "We are not violating Second Amendment rights," said New Jersey Attorney General Gerber Graywall at a public training on the new law Thursday. "We are just enabling reasonable measures to promote public safety and to make sure we are keeping firearms out of the hands of individuals who shouldn't have them." What Graywall says is offensively wrong on many levels, and it's up to us to not forget what's happening and to not disregard all the levels in which this man and his fellow agents of government show dangerous contempt for basic human rights. First, something that we can offer to Mr. Graywall. The right to self-defense is not a Second Amendment right. Rights are fundamental, axiomatic, and inherent to each individual human being, pre-existing the treehouse monkey offices called the state. They aren't provided by the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was written to ensure against infringement of our rights by people like you, Mr. Graywall. And Mr. Graywall, since you appear in dire need of instruction on this matter, I offer my services free of charge. You are violating the Second Amendment. The so-called red flag statutes, or ERPOs, those are extreme risk protection orders, and once you've heard that, you've definitely heard an Orwellian statement, are the epitome of anti-constitutional infringements of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is clear. The right of each citizen to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed by, aggressive people like you, Mr. Graywall. And when it comes to the word aggression, let's get something straight. If people have not been convicted of felonious violent crimes and aren't in the prisons that you stock full, Mr. Graywall, well, they cannot be ethically defined as people who shouldn't have firearms. If the state is not holding someone prisoner away from society, that person is supposed to be free to, yes indeed, exercise his or her right to self-defense. It's the state, funded through the coercive expropriation of innocent people's tax cash, which is the aggressive force and always will be the aggressive force. Mr. Graywall, all the rhetoric in the world can't hide the fact that your ERPO statute is a self-made license for state gun aggression against innocent people. It is a towering infringement of the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment prohibition against unwarranted searches and seizures without probable cause, and, yes indeed, an actual public pronouncement of such. It infringes the Fifth Amendment's prohibition against government depriving people of life, liberty, and property without due process, i.e. a jury trial. It also breaches the Fifth Amendment's prohibition against the taking of property without just compensation, i.e. eminent domain, which already assumes for the government much too much power. It breaches the Sixth Amendment's specific requirement of trial by an impartial jury, due process, and a chance to face one's accuser in court, and it breaches the Eighth Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. And lest one think that it's inappropriate to call an ERPO and its enforcement aggressive, one merely need check the story of Gary Willis, of Glen Burnie, Maryland, who was shot by Anne Arundel County Police acting on an ERPO at his home at 5:17 a.m. on November 5th last year. That would be Gary Willis, not convicted or accused of any crime, not the subject of any public warrant, awoken at 5:15 by banging on his door. As the New American explains, Gary Willis, resident of Ferndale, Maryland, was awakened Monday morning at 5:17 a.m. when two officers from Anne Arundel County knocked on his door. A law-abiding gun owner, Willis answered the door with a gun in his hand, according to a police department spokesman. They were there to serve him with an extreme risk protection order and remove his legally owned firearms. But Mr. Willis, whose niece Michelle says that he wouldn't hurt anybody, did not receive a warrant when he asked for one. Continuing with the piece, according to the spokesman, Willis put his firearm down to read the ERPO, but then, apparently recognizing that it wasn't a legal search warrant issued by a judge in accordance with protections guaranteed to him by the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, but instead was issued by a local judge under Maryland's newly minted red flag law, he retrieved his firearm, and he was killed by police. Details of who shot first are unclear, but numerous facts are clear. 1. He had every right to own his firearms. 2. The police were breaching most of the Bill of Rights. And 3. Mr. Willis was the victim of gun violence instituted by the poetic political parasites of Mr. Graywall's ilk, who haven't the faintest clue about the rights of people or what real aggression is. Now, that Maryland story is a year old. The New Jersey story is new and should act as a warning to those of us who hope that all police will side with the Constitution or our rights when they are ordered to infringe on them by their higher-ups in the state. September showed us what can happen with red flag laws in the state of New Jersey. And there are many other states that have instituted these statutes that run contrary to natural law. It's up to us to beware about these things and to tell our friends and to tell these politicians exactly what is going on. They are infringing on our rights, and they are the ones who are ready to institute gun aggression against us. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for MRC TV. I'm Gardner Goldsmith.